The Oblivion Remake is dropping imminently. So maybe by the time we say this on a recording device.
It would be likely. We usually manifest these things into existence. That said, Scott, I've heard so much about this Oblivion Remake over the past year or so that if it is happening, and it does sound like it's happening because everyone and their mother is reporting on it and leaking stuff about it, when is it happening?
Well, so there's a whole... It's funny as well because this is potentially dropping right alongside or just a little bit after Avowed and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Two games that I would say have a lot of Oblivion DNA in them.
Yeah.
Whether Avowed feels so much like Oblivion at times, and tons of Kingdom Come 2's UI, and the first one as well, feels a lot like old school Bethesda.
Kingdom Come is almost like a hardcore modded version of Oblivion, isn't it?
%.
And I say that as the biggest compliment ever. I love Kingdom Come 2.
It's probably going to be Game of the Year. But this Oblivion Remake, this comes from various sources, including Video Game Chronicle and Switch 2 announcement date leaker Nate the Hate, saying that the remake is to be announced imminently, like I mentioned, with a release date before June. There's a whole thing that the sentence is in the months between now and June. It's like, well, that's pretty much just April, or in terms of the release date. But yeah, to be announced imminently, release date just before June, placing it into April next month. The remake is rumored to be a full Unreal 5 engine overhaul with, to quote VGC, 6 reworked gameplay systems, including stamina, sneaking, blocking, archery, hit reaction, and the HUD itself, all to apparently appeal to younger or newer players. Combat is meant to be tighter, with stamina a lot more forgiving, and the UI is a lot more appealing overall. Video Game Chronicle were responsible for adding the specificity of the release window, as 2025 continues to be a very top-heavy year overall. And I'm putting the tinfoil hat on.
Go on.
I'm slipping it on because I think a whole bunch of publishers and studios are moving a lot of dates up last minute because internally, conversationally, someone's talking in the dinner queue. They are suddenly aware of that the GTA 6 is coming later this year. And it's like, oh my God, move everything up. Move everything up earlier in the year. If you can get it out earlier, do that. Like I said, 2025 continues to be a top-heavy year. And I've noted down a few major publishers, or publishers in general, that I would say are now avoiding the Q4 release date of GTA 6. One is Death Stranding 2 on the Beach. That's coming June 26th. Usually summer is like a barren landscape. Let me get through these and I know
Yeah, go on.
Disagree with me anyway.
I'll restrain myself.
Death Stranding 2 is coming in June. That could have come later in the year. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater in 3. That's coming July 11th. Also, this War of Mine creator's new game, The Alters, was meant to come out in November. That has been delayed for additional polish, with not another release date being attached to it. So, two strands to this: the Death Stranding, the Oblivion side of things, and the potential of like the industry being shifted around. I think Oblivion stuff is exciting. It's just funny that it's releasing just after 2 of its closest contemporaries.
It is. Let me go back to the GTA thing and let's address that first, because I think in classicos fashion, Scott, I think you make a great point. I just don't agree with the examples that you've used. I do think that, publishers are looking towards Q3, Q4 this year and hedging their bets. I think it's the reason that we haven't had a lot of actual dates for games that have been announced to be coming at the end of this year for November or December or October.
Running scared,
or anything
Josh.
like that. I do agree with you there. The idea of pushing games up to avoid it, though, I do think that would be a bridge too far almost, just because it takes a lot to get a game out earlier rather than later. And I think if these games were going to get delayed, personally, I would assume that they would be delayed away from GTA rather than to try and preempt GTA. And just you mentioned Death Stranding there. That's coming out in June. To be honest, I think I would, again, if I was a betting man, which I'm not because I always lose. If I was a betting man, I'd say that's coming out in June because Sony's big fall game is going to be Ghost of Yotei, and they normally like to give a few months breathing room between those. And Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, I mean, it's going to be a big-ish game. I don't think it's running scared of GTA because it doesn't want to go.
No one's going to have any money left.
That's true, don't get me wrong. When that fall period hits and when we do get a confirmed date for GTA, I think that's when you'll see a lot of games move.
Yes.
I think right now it's I think a lot of people are playing the waiting game, and if we can get them out in the summer, perfect. We can get in beforehand, but the announced games that are coming later this year, I do agree that they're definitely holding back and saying, okay, we'll see when Rockstar drops, and then we will just move everything around it rather than put a load of money into making trailers with a specific release date and then have to come out and say, yeah, we ain't doing that. Why? We need to come up with a reason because we can't say we're scared of Grand Theft Auto, but polish.
I
Let's
do
polish it
feel
a bit
like
more.
I feel like I'm reading the tea leaves. There are tea leaves I'm placing in the tea, but I do feel like there's something amiss with the way the calendar's rolling out this year. I do feel like we've had a lot of top-heavy releases. It was kind of the case a couple of years ago as well, but it just feels like something's in the air because we don't know exactly when GTA 6 is launching, because there were rumors of it being delayed, and then Take-Two walked that back and said, hey, don't worry, it's definitely coming out, but still didn't give us an actual release date. Assumingly there's another trailer coming soon or whatever, but it feels like it's an ongoing conversation, and because of that, if you have shareholders to please, you have financial years to line up with, some of them are per, different companies, the way they operate, then to me, lining that stuff up for a sec means if you can ship it earlier, for the love of God, do that before everyone starts spending their monthly wages on GTA Online. But to talk about Oblivion itself, we've covered this quite a lot. I mean, the first time this was rumored, I think, was 2023.
Wow, was it
was
long
part
ago,
of, I forget the massive leak that happened. There was a legal leak that happened. Maybe it was the acquisitional stuff.
Right, no, you're right. It was when
Might have been the Nvidia leak,
what was
actually.
It, like Best Buy or something. Put
I think
up
it was,
a load of placeholder titles that ended up coming true. Yeah,
every single one of them. I think it's Splinter Cell didn't come true. The remake got announced.
Yeah.
But yes, nearly all of them came true apart from the Oblivion remake. But this is coming from Virtua Studio, who also helped do the Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater remake. Obviously a very good job so far. We haven't played it or anything, but it looks very promising. But that idea of taking something that is so old and then making a point of overhauling the gameplay side of things, or the graphical side of things, but touching on the gameplay, I think that's really interesting. Like Oblivion is a lot of people's favorite Elder Scrolls. Mine's Skyrim. I feel like Oblivion and Skyrim are the Tony Hawk's 2 and 3 of Elder Scrolls. Like depending on when you grew up, like they sort of land in different places. But still, that idea of bringing Oblivion back, Bethesda could do with a stopgap to sort of, if you're searching Bethesda Elder Scrolls, when's the next Bethesda Elder Scrolls? They would rather you just said, Oblivion remake's right here. Don't worry about Elder Scrolls 6 because we have no idea at all. And we'll get to that eventually. But here's something that you can play until we're ready.
Yeah, I want this to be true. I love Oblivion. It was my entry point into kind of RPGs like it. I hadn't experienced anything like it before. I think I probably slightly prefer Skyrim, but there's something about Oblivion that makes it the one I return to more, even though I don't think it's as good of a game. Just aesthetically, the kind of lighter fantasy tone in the world of Cyrodiil, stuff like that. Even like the idea of the Oblivion gates giving you access to another dimension. Really cool ideas in there. But it's a kind of a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 situation where I'm excited about this and I want it to succeed because I hope it then opens the door for a similar treatment of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, which I think are more in need of a
New Vegas for
proper
sure.
rebate. Rebate? No, it doesn't need a tax rebate.
No, they can get a rebate from these releases.
New Vegas, because that game, I still love it, but it has a lot of bugs in it, and it could do with a little bit of polish and would be prime because it's a lot of people's favorite Fallout. Bring that back as a stopgap release. But you are right. I just like the fact that if this is happening, it's not just going to be the Elder Scrolls Online or Fallout 76 that is tiding us over between new installments or just any kind of release within these genre, because I like that those games exist, but I don't like that that's the only Elder Scrolls thing we've had apart from a re-release of Skyrim since Skyrim came out, right? I think there's space, and it's one of the only kind of franchises, I think, where you do have the potential to do more, and they never do. Like, a lot of franchises are oversaturated. I don't necessarily think this is one. There is a lot. I think there's a lot of open goals you can try to aim for with projects like this.
Well, it feels like I said, it's ages since there's been any positive buzz around Elder Scrolls. Bethesda have been in a bit of a, I don't know, not circling the drain necessarily, because it's not like they're going to hit a black hole in the middle, but just circling in general. What do we focus on? What do we do? Like Pete Hines left after being there like 20 odd years or whatever it was, which was a bit indicative of, or at least to me, of the general work culture and the way that things had changed. All the leaked emails came out from him and all the different things that happened when they got acquired. So, and obviously Starfield?
Yeah. I want to say yeah. You're making me doubt myself.
I don't know. My brain doesn't think that sounds right. But Starfield. Field of Stars.
We're supposed to be game journalists.
Well,
what's happened with this? I'm going to Google it.
I'll Google it as well,
because I'm actually a bit rattled.
Whatever happens, we leave this in the edit. Starfield. Yeah. It's because blooming Starlink is the stupid Musk one.
Hey, you're right as well. Yeah,
that's been in my mind.
We were like the only Starfield fans as well. We
literally
couldn't even remember the name. You'd made me doubt myself, Scott.
I don't like it, but I'm going to put a timestamp there because I don't want to mention Musk's name on a recording. Starfield, that obviously didn't go down as well as it could have done either. And so I feel like Bethesda have been a little bit back and forth, and maybe it does line up with the same mentality that you mentioned with Tony Hawk's, and that idea of new management stepping in, going like, hey, which projects are you maybe not focusing on? What can we get turned around? Can you remind people why they love you?
Yeah.
Maybe you can put this thing out. Just to quickly mention, because VGC go into a little bit more detail about like some of the gameplay systems, saying that, yeah, stamina is more forgiving, but the knockdown animation that would happen every time you would run out of stamina, apparently that's been tweaked.
I can't remember
which I don't remember
I'm
either.
blanking this, yeah.
Maybe people hacking and slashing a little bit too much.
I don't recall stamina ever being that punishing in Oblivion. Like, even in Skyrim, it wasn't all that punishing, I don't think.
Maybe you're just too good, mate.
Maybe I was.
Game journalist, isn't it?
I must admit, when I played that game when I was 13, I did put the difficulty all the way down
Right.
so I could go into the arena and get my heavy armor skill up, because I would
Yeah.
get hit a lot without dying. So
That might be why.
That might be why.
If you're playing on the regular difficulty or something, then you're maybe used to stamina running out. Also, the hit reaction stuff is meant to give you a better idea of that you've been hit, or different ways that weapons clash in combat. Things like that. So it's modernizing it in a way. I mean, a lot of old school Elder Scrolls combat is very flaily.
Yes.
In like a fun way, but I think it's interesting them experimenting with that. Something like Avowed or Kingdom Come has a lot of specific animation dedicated to like the clashing of blades, or the sort of more meaty feel of that. So I'm curious how the whole thing feels. I'm more interested in the visuals, like you mentioned how iconic it is.
Yeah.
Things like the Oblivion Gates and going to that realm. The lighting there should be incredible.
Oh, man.
I think it'd be really weird if the graphics have a massive overhaul, but it still plays like Oblivion, because you move so rigidly in that game.
Yeah, that's true.
But it'd be an old school charm to it. but yeah.
The idea of the Oblivion gates, it would be so cool if they made those seamless, so you don't have a loading screen. If you are literally Ratchet and Clank style jumping into a different dimension on the fly, so I want to see improvements like that more so, as much as just the pure raw visuals being updated to, again, Unreal Engine 5 presumably, or whatever. I think it's fascinating that it might drop before summer, June, July, or whenever it was, because
Get out of the way of GTA 6, mate.
yeah. But even outside of that, Game Pass has had a cracking start to the year and arguably end to 2024, and they're finally getting a nice cadence of releases. You know, they've got a lot announced for the next couple of months. We're coming up to Atomfall and Claire Obscure, and then we've got Doom to look forward to, South of Midnight, and a lot of games in the docket to keep you subscribing to Game Pass. And if you drop this in June or whenever, or maybe even a couple of months before, I think it's just more reason to keep subscribed before those big hitters that Microsoft has start to drop again towards the end of the year. It's nice to see them actually giving us a reason to subscribe to Game Pass, because I do feel like their offerings outside of the first party stuff have waned in recently. I don't know how you feel about this, but every time I see their next monthly lineup, I'm always a little bit disappointed.
There's so much more they could do with past generations. I'm still waiting on Singularity. Just get it on there.
John Woo's Stranglehold, where are you?
Like, you've bought this multiple treasure chests of like 15, 20, more than that, decades old stuff. Initially the thought process was like, well, they're not going to do it all at once. They're going to drip feed it and whatever. And maybe they are. Things move at a dead snail's pace in corporate land. So maybe they'll get there eventually. But it feels like there's so much more that they could do. And especially when Sony have picked up that baton going, hey, by the way, Dino Crisis is on PlayStation Plus, or Soul Reaver, or whatever it is. There's so much more that I feel like Sony is doing with that stuff, and that Xbox could do more of. But yeah, overall, we will see what happens in the next couple of months. It'll go from trailer to actually being available within the next 2 months, unless someone like Nate the Hay is wrong. But the last thing that he weighed in on was the Switch 2 announcement, and dude got it bang on, even to the time of day that it came out.
Pretty damn reliable.
Pretty damn convincing.